Cub fans, welcome to a very special episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. I am your hostess, the mostest, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogalskis, and with me, as not always, but not recently, but back from lots of family fun and filming of a hit Chicago TV series, Mr. Patrick Erickson. Pat,
Jeff, I
oh,
missed you, buddy. How
I
are you?
know. This is it's nice because I feel like I've either had to get a guest or like sit down here and talk to myself, which like I think
Don't worry, I do that all the time.
my wife was starting to believe I made you up. I don't think she thinks you're real. So
Did it, did it, did.
we're gonna have to have you like come and meet me in person in the same room.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, like she thinks you're a figment of my imagination, like some AI program that I've somehow
Who is this
trained.
guy you speak of?
Yeah, like it's just like
Goodness.
there's no way you got anyone to do this with you, right? Like he's
Heck
fake.
no.
Yeah.
We're gonna do, even though it's the winter time out there, and I just got a notice on my phone about some like extreme cold conditions or whatever. You got to keep thinking baseball this time of year. You have to, and so that's why I just keep doing down here, getting ready, watching all the winter meeting stuff, having a little bit of libations, and just getting excited because it'll be here before you know it.
No, absolutely. And thank you to everyone. You keep seeing me looking down on the broadcast probably, but I'm trying to look up about our Cubbies right now. And I'm also trying to
Absolutely.
look at all the different chats we have active wherever you're joining in on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. This is a very special episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. It is always the Cub podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans. And this is very much the strong for Cubs fans episode. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll be taking any questions that pop into the chat from
Sure.
Twitter, from Instagram, all those things. So make your voices heard, Brickhead, wherever you're listening from today. We're gonna talk a lot of Cubs baseball. We've got some stuff. Pat's been doing the grind today, so while I've been enjoying the new digs for my big boy job. We moved to
New digs look pretty sweet. I got to
yeah
tell you, it had that underground bunker vibe, but yet it's so spread out in there. It looks pretty dang good. I like
yeah.
it. I
It's
like
got
it.
like it's that classic like tech company chic where it's like
Oh yeah.
a
Oh yeah.
combination of like that exposed brick while also
Yep.
like super fancy stuff and like tons of free snacks. So yeah, for those who
Can't go
don't
wrong there.
exactly.
That's awesome.
For
That's
those who don't
awesome.
know, I full time as an analytics guy for a tech company here in Chicago that delivers food, and that's as specific as I'll go. Even though like it's all over the internet, you just search my name. Like I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so
I don't know if you haven't heard, folks, but he's
yeah.
kind of a big deal.
No, I'm not that, but I do have a job,
Yeah.
and it's not this, which I feel like that's pretty evident to our audience that this isn't a full time
Oh,
job.
stop. This is the fun stuff. This is the fun stuff. Absolutely.
But yeah, let's get into a little bit of housekeeping.
Sure.
If you have a question, if you want to ask a question to us, we'll drop your name or your handle. Leave it in
Hmm.
Twitter, leave it in Instagram, leave it on YouTube. We will find it. We've got so many different pieces of technology to kind of talk about, like
Hmm.
Cub stuff
Hmm.
with you and have you interact with us. So
Yep.
thank you so much wherever the hell you may be listening right now. Currently, we apparently have 58 viewers, so that's pretty cool. That feels pretty
Sweet.
nice. Yeah.
Hopefully
So
we don't give you nightmares overnight, but the
and
other thing too, we've got all these media platforms and whatnot. And I know that I went live with the little Facebook Live thing from down here. And a lot of you folks, I'll even go as far as to say this. A lot of you folks know what my cell phone number is. So I'm not going to give it out here. But if you know and you got a question that you want to ask, shoot me a text right here. I'll read your question on the air too. And, we'll get at it. This is all about us looking forward to the spring, looking forward to baseball, looking forward and dreaming about what could happen, analyzing what already has happened, kind of putting our spin on it a little bit, and kind of going from there. But before I get into baseball, there's one thing, and I know everybody that knows me personally is probably going to roll their eyes when I do this. But I have to do this because my son's home. I got to look right in the camera and go, how about them dogs? That's it. All right. Now on to baseball. There you
yeah,
go.
for those who don't know, is a big Georgia Bulldogs fan, and one of the Erickson offspring is currently studying there. So I did get to see. We'll talk about real quick.
We got Harry down here too, so yeah.
You got your first dogs game day experience. How was that? Let's talk a
Oh,
little CFP for a second.
I'm telling you what. So, it kind of, honest to goodness, it took me back to when I was a little kid walking up the stairs at Wrigley. So, little backstory, real quick. I've been a Georgia Bulldog fan. People are probably like, "Oh, he's jumping on the bandwagon." No, I've been a Bulldog fan for the last 30 years. Kind of married into it with my wife. A lot of her family's down from Georgia and everything, and so ever since then, the mid 90s, I've always been a Georgia Bulldog fan. Never had the opportunity to go see a game. This just so happened to where I drove down there, and it was going to end up being spending the weekend down there with my son and his buddies, and then take him home for Thanksgiving break. And so we went to the game, and they played UMass, so it was a little bit of a lower tiered team. But just walking in there and just knowing the history and the tradition, of Georgia football down there with in Athens and everything, and it's amazing, and it was something that I'll never forget. And there's even, and it's not just football. I mean, if you look, last year's Major League Baseball draft, number one overall was a Georgia Bulldog. It was Charlie Condon. And,
Yeah.
And his stuff's still all over the place. He still comes back and visits on campus. I guess my son said he went to a couple of home games and was on the Jumbotron and whatnot. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And when I left there, it kind of takes you back. But then it also made me realize, okay, now that I've been to Sanford Stadium, I can't wait to get my butt back into Wrigley. So
Yeah.
let's go.
I always go through this is like such a weird time of year for me, and I'll get
Yep.
personal, but I do want to do two quick shout outs, while
Sure.
they're around. Joe Obvious shirts on the stream right now shouting us out. So
What's up?
that's pretty freaking cool. Hey Joe, call me or DM me, man. Like I would love to do some work with you. Passionate cancer research, fundraising type of guy. My mom, who is I believe still watching, had ovarian cancer and would love to do something Bricks Behind the Ivy related to raise some money, especially now too, with Rhino.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, let's take a moment to just send some good thoughts to Rhino and his
Oh
family.
boy.
Round
Yeah.
two with pancreatic cancer is not a good thing, and just gonna send him well wishes and hope the
Yeah.
chemo and such can kind of tackle this thing and he can still kind of just remain the jolly and like bright spirit he is for the Cubs while he's
Yep.
going through this difficult time. So I know that all of Cub Nation is behind Rhino, and yeah, Joe would love to do something to raise money for cancer research, near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely, Joe.
My mom had major surgery in 2016. Was awesome watching the games with her after her surgery and on that run to the point where she asked me to stop watching with her because that's when they started losing to Cleveland. And she like, hey, mom's always right? Like that's
Yep. You listen to your mother no matter how old you are.
so
Yep.
that's yeah, would love to do something there. And I also I saw one of my good friends from all the way back in middle school, Mr. John Tomino, asking questions in the chat. Super cool to see him hopping in there. Thanks, Tomino. I play baseball every Tuesday and Thursday night, or Wednesday night baseball. Sorry, back in fourth grade with his dad and my dad. They would pitch and catch, and
Awesome.
yeah, his dad used to hit me regularly in a gentleman's spot, and was very surprised was able to have offspring. But thanks for all the memories, even if they were very physically painful. Um, but anywho, this is I guess we're gonna pretend it's a family program. I think we should transition right into Cubs
Ish.
baseball, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk kind of a rundown of the news today.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just kind of do kind of a quick read off of the things that we're seeing. The first story I think we're going to talk about is Seiya Suzuki. There
Mm-hmm.
was some rumors earlier in the offseason about him being available via trade. I think we saw Bleacher Nation, lots of different folks kind of logically talk about how that wasn't likely someone that was available. We knew Cody Bellinger, based on his contract situation, was going to be available, but
Mm-hmm.
we did not think that we would see, Seiya. He's got the no trade clause, all these things. a
Right.
lot more information came out today from his agent, who was, mainly addressing, um, you know, the situation with Roki Sasaki being posted. So he's going to start meeting with
Hmm.
teams. Um, but at the end of the day, like he started talking about Seiya and his preference to play right field, and if he were a free agent right now, if he were being posted right now, that he would pick a team in which they were going to let him play right field, and his dissatisfaction with this idea of him being a designated hitter. Um, Regardless of what every defensive metric, regardless of it being a newer defensive metric or older defensive metric, showing that, and the eye test showing that he has at minimum the yips playing right field.
Oh
It's
gosh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a
And
really
that's
tough
putting it
watch.
lightly. Yeah.
Yeah, like when you can hear an entire stadium sphincter collapse, like when you're playing the outfield, that's when like you do not pass the eye test.
No,
That's really
no.
tough.
Every time a fly ball comes to him, and I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine, Cub fans, every time a fly ball comes to him, it takes me back to the audio of when Ron Santo called that fly ball that
Brant,
Brant Brown was
I was gonna
supposed
say
to catch.
Brant Brown.
Yep.
Like I
This
wasn't,
can't be happening
I
every
wasn't,
time.
I was barely old enough to like really have solid memories, and that's one that sticks in my head. Like,
Yep.
oh my god, I
Yep.
can hear every sound of like his disappointment as it like rolls
Oh
through.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it reframes. And Matt Trueblood, shout out to Matt, who's given me a lot of runway over at Northside Baseball, which has led to me meeting you and a bunch of other folks in this community. But he
Yeah.
wrote a piece about how like that solves a very hard to answer question for earlier in the offseason about why is Say Suzuki's name being mentioned at all. And it sounds like either the Cubs are doing him like a solid by getting him into a
Hmm.
situation he'd rather be in, or like they are potentially fed up with either like his inability to play right field or are
Yeah.
looking for. You get a manager like Craig Counsell, the first thing I always think of is like his success was with the Brewers, which involved a lot of like just rotations of guys off the bench. They did a lot of
Yep.
platooning. That was based on just the budget that they had. They had to
Hmm.
get a number of players, like the Moneyball theory, to fit a specific set of war or a
Sure.
specific type of player. Where like the Cubs shouldn't have to do that. So I
No.
think there was this concept last year, in my mind, of, well, he didn't play the bench as much as he potentially used to because he would ultimately have players that would be better than what he would have as an everyday player when he had the
Yep.
Brewers. But you
Yep.
know, I also do think that the key to unlocking, winning the marathon is having a very like rotatable, useful bench, and also
Hmm.
having an opportunity to spell guys using the DH. Like if you do not have an absolutely certified, like locked in all-star DH like a Juan Soto or maybe Jordan Alvarez if you're looking at the Astros,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
like you should use that spot to maybe spell a guy that hits pretty well and just needs a day off. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like say Suzuki is not that. He's gonna
Hmm.
be locked in at DH on this team. He probably could play right field from time to time, but I think
Hmm.
preferably if you've got Bellinger on this team, or basically the team is what the team is right now. Bellinger's on this team, like he's gonna play right
Right.
field,
Right.
unless
Exactly.
there's this disintegration in what Michael Bush is. Then like he's gonna play first base from time to time, but he's for sure going to play right field,
Oh yeah.
because Seiya just has not proven it. And this is a this is a contact oriented pitching staff. Like the defense is very important. Like until there's more
Oh yeah.
swing and miss on the staff, like
Yeah. They're
defense
not going to
is
smoke the guys out. No. Exactly.
exactly. That's so yeah, it's interesting. Like I feel like I'm like diarrhea of the mouth tonight. I'm all amped up for our
No.
live
No.
show.
You know what? I honestly I couldn't agree with you more. And it was interesting that you did bring up that fact about Council, because Council, what he did a lot in Milwaukee, and probably got a few of my buddies out there that I do my annual trip to Wisconsin every year, and one of them's a diehard Brewer fan, Sleepy. I'm sorry, but anyway, so we've watched a lot of Council baseball up in Milwaukee, and he has done that. He likes to play around with the roster. He likes to play around with as far as who's going to be on the bench, who can we plug in here, who's got the hot hand, etc. Well, the problem is, and this is another, and again, it's just a theory, but if you have Suzuki and he's got, he was locked into a pretty decent contract for what he got and everything else, then you're almost not forced, but you're almost have to play him every day based upon, okay, we paid him this money, and it could be coming from upstairs, it could be coming from whomever saying, okay, he's got to play every day. And then that in turn handcuffs Counsell. So I think that could be another reason why that they're shopping him, because if he's going to sit here and consistently say, before coming on here with you tonight, did a little bit of research, and I did find a couple articles that he, through his agent, has specifically said he doesn't want to be a DH. And if he's not going to do that, then to me, excuse me, that also spells that he's not willing to do whatever this ball club needs for him to do in order for himself and for the team as a whole to be successful. And right now, he's only looking for, what am I going to do on maybe not necessarily a 162 game basis, but what am I going to do at 140 or whatever games I want to be in the outfield when his manager doesn't want him to? And that's going to handcuff him. And so that could be another big reason as far as why they're shopping him. And it is a good problem to have. I thought, and I talked about this with my son at ad nauseum, that I never thought that Bellinger was going to go anywhere for next year. He had a very off year last year. He had a injury plagued season last year, and his agent, Scott Boras. So what does Boras want him to do? Boras is going to go out and try to get the biggest amount of money that you can. Well, obviously, coming off a year like that, he's not going to get squat. So why not stick around in an organization that you like, that you feel comfortable in, that you are still, regardless of what happened in this season, still held as a high regard. Hopefully come out next year, has a big season, and then this time next year, we could be talking the same thing about Belly that we're talking about Seiya right now.
Yeah, and
You know,
I want to give a quick shout out to for Neil, who does, first of all, he made the graphics for BBTI. If you were
Neil,
not,
great job, buddy.
yeah, aware of how unprofessional they looked, they were all done by me prior, on different phone apps and stuff, and each iteration I think was slightly better. But Neil's in the chat right now on YouTube, and he said that I had a tweet earlier that he agrees with, about Seiya. And I do remember reading. I'm a big proponent of the Athletic. I'm not going to give away the cheese here, for free. I know it's the milk for free, but it's I was feeling cheesy, given the Harry Carey, eating the moon of cheese. But I'm not going to give away that's a paid subscription. And
Oh, I
Sahadev
love it.
Sharma and Patrick Mooney are two of my favorite, like reporters for the Cubs. Their writing is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic.
Do a great
Sahadev
job.
was, an advanced analytics guy long before there were like a plethora of advanced analytics guys. So like he like hit that nerd itch I needed really really bad, very very soon,
Mm-hmm.
early. So super super appreciative of his writing, and go check it out. But there was an article in the middle of this year about the Cubs moving on from Seiya Suzuki's translator, and there was like some comments in the article about like misinterpretations of like what the Cubs expected from him and
Oh
vice
boy.
versa.
Mm-hmm.
And like we didn't have that problem with Shota Imanaga. Like clearly
No.
it's a very different personality. Like that's clear
Mm-hmm.
as day. And like expecting every human being to behave the same way is nuts. Like we're all different. Like there's not an instruction book for how people work. Like that's why the spectrum that exists continues to get wider, because we're learning that
Mm-hmm.
not all of us learn or interact the same way. So this broad brush approach no longer works. But yeah, there seem to be some tea leaves of already the Cubs having some issues with like how they were communicating, and maybe vice versa how he's communicating back. And this
Right.
feels like kind of, I don't know, I like a escalation of that issue, or maybe
Oh yeah.
the conversation has become clearer, and now this is where it's gotten to, like, if I'm not going to play right field, like we're going to present you these options of teams that might let you do that, or are going to let you do
Right.
that. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the market is prime, excuse me, for trades, and at least it seems like it. Not
Oh,
every
I
team
think
is
so.
swimming in Benjis, and there's a television, rights issue, for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
baseball teams that the Cubs don't need to be concerned about, luckily, as they have their own network. The only thing we need to be concerned on financially is why is there not more money for baseball operations, and
Right.
why are they? But Jed explained that quite clearly today. Of like, oh, there is money for players like that. We just weren't interested in a generational talent like Juan Soto. We decided early on that was something we were
Yeah.
not interested in. Like, no, no, no. I love steak, but I don't want the Kobe beef. I would really like
No.
the McDonald's hamburger and like
Yeah.
11 of them. So like that's like I don't understand that argument. But yeah, I think it's enough like kicking, Seiya Suzuki, and I think, we'll kind of shift into active names in the Cubs market, and I guess like
Yeah.
my overarching concern of, the work that needs to be done even with the active names in the market. There has so
Hmm.
it's clear the Cubs are trying to shake up their roster, and there's some
Oh yeah.
coy comments from my boy Mr. Craig Counsell. There's pictures somewhere of me with his batting stance, like from the sixth, seventh grade. That is not a joke. Like I adopted that. I have several references of friends who still make fun of me. I'm
All right.
35 years old. Like
You're gonna need to text me a photo of this. I gotta see this.
it
That's
was way
awesome.
over the head like
Oh
that.
yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
get. Oh
exactly.
yeah. Hmm.
Oh God, I think I just pulled something trying to do that now, but like,
Oh, I heard cracking over here. Trust me.
exactly. Yeah, way too many cracks for my age group. But maybe Matt Cozy, if you're listening, we're gonna have to cancel that all stream softball team. We just lost their catcher. But um,
Whoops.
but yeah, I a lot of names that we've seen: Nico Horner, Cody Bellinger, and now Seiya
Yeah.
Suzuki. And yeah, I guess I'm gonna start, which is weirdly, and you can provide the rebuttal. I'm gonna start on the negative
Sure.
side for once. Um, if you get rid of Cody Bellinger, we do not have PCA or Michael Bush insurance. If there is a regression offensively from either one of those players,
Hmm.
the Cubs offense will be in a worse state than it was last year.
Hmm.
Cody Bellinger, I don't think was the player that he was last year. He was playing with a cracked rib. If
Yep.
anyone has done anything with a cracked rib, it's difficult. The guy was playing professional baseball with one.
Right.
Strikeout rate was still pretty reasonable. Hard hit rate, yes, it was tracking into the numbers that a lot of people were concerned about, but
Hmm.
I don't think that's the full version. We've had 2 years in a row where he's had like an abdominal or rib injury in May in a game he had to leave versus the Astros, one in Houston and one in one at Wrigley, crashing into the wall. Yes, they literally like it's mirrors of this like prism of
Yep.
obscure like averageness that we have entered with the Cubs. So
Yeah.
like
Oh gosh. Yeah.
two
Absolutely.
two Mays in which we lose Cody Bellinger in a game versus the Astros of him crashing into a wall, and 2 Mays of 10 and 18. So combined 20 and 36 in May to have 2 seasons end with 83 wins. I mean, the only thing different was who was at the helm, basically, and it was David
Right.
Ross versus Craig Counsell. But yeah, and the other issue I have with Nico Horner, contact-based pitching staff, and you're losing one of the top gloves on the team, especially up the middle
Hmm.
defense. You want to be the old baseball adage of "sure up the middle" is always what I
Yeah.
would hear. Growing up, sure up the middle, center field,
Yep.
shortstop, second base, catcher. Like
Yep.
those were the prime positions. Shortstop probably more than second base, but we're in a different version of the game. Your second baseman
Hmm.
basically has to be the shortstop for your left-handed hitters.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then, yeah, that is concern to me. And then Seiya Suzuki, offensively, I've seen the arguments on Twitter. Offensively, was your best player last year,
Right.
and it wasn't close. Not Silver Slugger good, as we've
No.
talked about. He didn't hold the right bat or whatever the political bullshit that comes with being nominated for an award like
Hmm.
that. But
Hmm.
he did absolutely like perform offensively, and I saw some folks like ripping him like with men on base and stuff. If you look at the numbers, his numbers are even better with men on base. So like
Right.
there's not
Right.
an argument against, what he's done offensively. But, at the end of the day, um, we'll see what happens there. But if you're going to take Bellinger and Seiya Suzuki out of this offense that was not good enough last year, then what's coming in better be, it can't be
Oh, better be
replacement.
huge.
Yeah, it can't be replacement level. It has to
Yep.
exceed what those two guys did, and that's going to be quite the task. So that's the
Yep.
pessimistic view. Do you have a positive rebuttal on the
Well,
Cubs
no,
player?
you know what? And honestly, I think you hit a lot of things on the head. I personally do not want to see Nico go. Just kind of touching on this real quick. I think he is one of the solid gloves that we've got. I think that his hitting is going to come around. I also do agree with you that Belly provides the insurance for guys like Bush and PCA if they start slumping, because otherwise, then we're going to be playing minor league roulette. And you're basically at Vegas and you're putting it down and seeing what happens. But yeah, so I think you hit the nail on all that. As far as a positive, looking at this team for next year, I think that, with the acquisition, the pitching staff now is actually getting shored up a lot better with Matthew coming aboard now. And, I think that we are going to see a stronger pitching staff. Now, granted, it's going to be, like you've mentioned a couple times already, it's still a pitching staff that's based upon contact. They're not going to go out there and mow you down, but I think it's still going to be rather well. I think the bullpen, the acquisitions that they're doing with that, they're concentrating on the bullpen for once, which is huge, because that had more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese in it last year. So that was a big positive for me. And I think now too, and even something like this, and a lot of people may disagree with me or whatnot, but now Counsell's going to be starting a new year with his staff and his coaches now that they think he just got this last one just hired this week. And I'm telling you what, especially someone as analytical as Counsell is, he needs to have all the proper it's like playing chess, and now he's got all the proper chess pieces in. So that's going to give him a level of confidence, and it's going to give him a level of comfort. And I think now that you've got those parts in play, I think it's going to trickle down to the team and trickle up towards Counsell as far as being positive. And the other thing too is, and I'm just looking at my notes right now, we still got a few days, a day and a half, 2 days left as far as the winter meetings are concerned. And then there's can be trades, obviously, and acquisitions after that. But there are still some pretty big names out there. I keep consistently hearing, Vladimir Guerrero and, and all these other things. Dylan Cease out there. Crochet is still getting shopped all over the place. Now, will the Cubs go after them? Will the Cubs get them? Will the Cubs make offers on them? Hard to tell. But here's the thing. Those guys, albeit great acquisitions, great ball players, would be a great add to this team. You're not looking at they're going to be getting contracts like Soto, where, the guy's making over $2,000 a minute, with his new contract.
Yeah.
I broke this all down earlier, and it's disgusting. But in any event, so these are players that are still out there, big hitters, good hitters, reliable hitters, good arms out there, both lefties, righties, that the Cubs could still go out there and get. And it's, what does he always used to say every year, hope, spring eternal. And I think that when we start looking at this, I think it's going to look good for them. I think the minor league system is still really good. Unfortunately, we kind of caught the short end of the stick with the draft lottery next year. We're at like 17th overall pick, with the Nats getting number 1 overall. But I think that our minor league system is still really good. And I think that they just need to start building within. I think that they are, 1 or 2 big bats away, and maybe get yourself another arm. We got to nail down this closer problem that we have. Once those small things are put into place, I think we're going to be good.
Yeah, I think, we had, and check out the episodes if you haven't subscribed to the podcast. This is going to be the advertising part of the show. Make sure that you're hitting that subscribe button when you're listening to our audio. If you're not listening to our audio every week, go on to Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We're very well distributed, and go over there.
Oh, yeah.
Subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast, and then share the podcast to your friends. If you want to go a step further, we do this on video every week, and I throw in a lot of very obscure SNLs from the 90s and 80s jokes to every episode that I think are very funny. If you think they're very funny, go watch those. If you don't think they're funny, leave a comment below the video of how unfunny you think I am, and I will change.
And if you don't think it's funny, folks, get a sense of humor. Jeff's got one. Come on now. Come on now.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to even go a step further, we have a Patreon in which you can support our funding of ads so that we can continue to grow this Cub community and really continue to be the Cub podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans. So enough of that spiel. Back to our Cubs talk. Just a little
And
bit of
as a quick side note, my research department over here, he just actually sent me something. He said that right now, as far as that closer role, the Cubs right now, a big target for them is that Kyle Finnegan from Washington.
okay.
And the Cubs have been really seriously looking at him right now. So that could be a positive as far as shoring up that closing situation. So, Nick, thanks for the research, buddy. But yeah, so I think, you know, hope springs eternal, my man.
Yeah, and I think they've really targeted some really nice bullpen pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been a lot of names that have been dropped in the bullpen area. Just want to let folks know that I'm actually having a hard time seeing the questions if they're coming in on Instagram. So if you are, hop over to YouTube or send me a message directly on Instagram at the BPPTI podcast, and I'll be able to get the questions that way. Otherwise, having a hard time seeing them over there. But yeah, I think the Cubs have really seemed to take the bullpen issue very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Rocket, in his uh, Cubs Cast Corral, which is a great segment, he goes over the big topics from every Cubs podcast that's out there. As I found out, after I started this thing, there were a lot more than I was aware of. Uh, Not that I
A
expected for me to
lot
have
of
the
passion out there.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I didn't think I had a patent on the space, but I definitely did not think there were as many that I was aware of. But he goes over each podcast and talks about the main subject, and he had highlighted from our Cole Wright interview, which Cole, if he's listening, like Cole was awesome. He was such a great guest,
Yeah.
super nice guy, like super cool. He's from the south suburbs, like just like I'm from the south suburbs, like so we had a lot of things like that in common, and just like obviously like a baseball nerd, like in the way that like he played the game for a really long time at a high level, and yeah, it just feels like another fellow baseball rat like that's on marquee, like, and he brings a lot of energy to
Mm-hmm.
the broadcast. So, like, can't say enough good things about Cole Wright. Such a great interview. But yeah, he called having Hector Neris in the ninth inning, like, trying to cut a steak with a prison knife, which, like, was a really nice
Oh,
metaphor. But, like, and like we had both said too on that podcast, like it wasn't like a knock at you know at Hector Neris. He did what he was asked to do. Like he did
mm-hmm.
exactly what we asked him to do as a fan, as his manager asked him to do, and at the end of the day, like the poor guy just like he just wasn't good at it. Like it's just
Oh, yeah.
he just was not good at it. And like that's fine. I'm not here to point fingers. Like I know it was his job and maybe they should have moved on from him a little bit sooner. Like don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something that they potentially should have done. But like
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
But they
he's
really, if you look at it at that point, could they have?
yeah,
They
that I
really, honestly,
that
they
that's
really didn't
that's
even
the
have the
challenge
luxury
I
to do it.
always have for fans who tell me they're like, they
Bingo.
should have moved
Yeah.
from there. So I'm like, to who? Like
To who?
who was the option? Like, what you want
Yeah.
me, Candid Cubs, like what coming in throwing 47 down the middle? Like I don't think yeah, on a good day, like yeah, I mean maybe they'd be fooled the first time because like it reminds me of Major League Back to the Minors where they had that pitcher named Doc, and
Oh gosh,
they,
yeah.
they had the broken radar gun, and like they had
Yep.
like Gus Cantrell, and he's like, what's wrong with this thing? He's like, oh, it doesn't detect anything under 55. And he's like, under 55? He's like, do you want to see my changeup, coach? That's
It's
uh,
funny you said that. Shout out to actually one of the guys watching right now, CJ, who owns a bar just outside of American Family Field. It's called Fourth Base. So there it is right there. And
you've
they actually
done
filmed the last
content.
scene.
You've done
Yep.
content live from that bar.
Yeah, and they filmed the last scene from that movie there. So shout out to CJ. But yeah, I mean, that's just the thing is that we've had so many of these players that have come up and they're just they're not working out or they're not panning out or they're not you have your good days, bad days, etc. But the Cubs lately, because of lack of depth, they haven't had that luxury of okay, if A's not going to work, then let's put in B. If B's not going to work, let's put in C. That's if A's not going to work, close your eyes and change the channel because this is all you got you know.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So yeah, I think bullpen seems to be very well addressed.
Mm-hmm.
we got a question from the Bricks and Ivy on Instagram. Been talking back and forth with that account for the last few days, talking about some just potential MLB the Show content for the show in the future. But he's asking, do we think that Jed would trade for Kyle Tucker? Not, do we think it's going to happen? Do we think he'll do it? I'll let you start.
Well, it's funny that you said it because his name is on my notes right here. You know, he's only 27 years old. Injuries plagued him last year. He was only able to play in 78 games. But I mean, if you have a line, 277 at bats, and yet he still had 23 homers and an OPS of 993. That's pretty doggone good, especially in an injury plagued year. So that being said, I would, again, being optimistic, I would think that Jed should go after him or at least drop a line on him, drop a feeler on him, say, what's it going to take? I think right now would be the best bet and see, because here's the deal. I think you can obviously get him cheaper now because of the fact that he is coming off that injury plague season, because they're already talking about this time next year. That's going to be the number one name coming off the board. If he has another injury-free season with these kind of numbers in the 2025 season, he's going to be the number one guy coming off the books and going to be the number one guy that's going to be out there. So do I think that Jed's going to do something about it? I would like to hope so. But then again, Jed seems to be in, sleepy time land and not really doing much. But if he's going to do it, now's the time to capitalize on it and just see who's out there, because that would be a hell of a bet to get out there. And again, he's only 27, so he's still got youth at his side a little bit too. But Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a tough trade in assigning the value. It'll be interesting to see, what the market pushes his value to be, what they're hearing, what they're getting. The Cubs have the farm system to potentially get anyone they want.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's always I love this. I love all my buddies, a lot of them Sox fans. If you're listening, thanks for the support on this. But like, I always love when we play fantasy baseball and like everybody like is always like, "Oh, that was you screwed that guy over in a trade," or like, "Hi," like like the not going to use the term. I just feel like it's a little insensitive to the subject. But like when you really screw over your buddy, like that seems to be like, so now no one trades. It's like we sit in a
Yeah,
stagnation where like everybody has had the same roster for like 2-3 years because like nobody wants to be the guy that like
but he wants to
gets
just take it.
dumped on the next like
Mhm.
hang on. It's like, you gave up that dude, you're such a moron. Like that's gonna so like I feel like in these instances like there will be a perceived overpay, there will be a perceived underpay, and
Mhm.
especially with prospects. Like
Oh
prospects
yeah.
are lottery tickets. Like until they do it
Yep.
at the major league level, they've done nothing.
Yep.
And like they're like I think it was I believe it was Hot Stove Cubbies, not just friend of the pod, but more than a friend of the pod. He had tweeted something about Josh Vitters, who was like a top Cubs prospect. Like,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
exactly. Like that's
Wow, is that a wayback machine?
yeah, like, and that's a great reference, by the way. I grew up on I cut my teeth at Rocky and Bullwinkle and Mr. Peabody and Sherman, but that he like and that's like you think of Felix PA and like
Yep, that was another name I was about to bring up. Yep.
what Corey
Yep.
Patterson was supposed to be. Like, think of like how much like trading Bobby Hill in 2003 turned the
Yeah.
Cubs into getting Randall Simon, Ramos Ramirez, and Kenny Lofton, which like really pushed them to that 2003 run. And Ramos
Yep.
Ramirez is a Hall of Fame Cub now. Like that's
Yep.
like so like yeah, the hindsight is right, but Bobby Hill was a top prospect in baseball at the time. So
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, but I mean over no yeah, I guess over the years, I just I understand that the market's going to dictate something different than any of us are going to be able to have knowledge on unless we're
Hmm.
insiders. And yeah, like they have the chips to do it. Will Jed do it? I really, really would like him to execute a trade like that. I like to me, it either has to be Tucker, it has to be Guerrero, based on the rumors
Hmm.
currently around the Blue Jays. Guerrero ain't going nowhere. The Blue Jays are still pushing.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. In all honesty, I think their roster is constructed kind of wildly. It's a mess. They don't have a great farm system. Like their
Yep.
pitching is aging and it's not great. Their offense like was messy for times last year,
Oh,
even with
look at what
Vlad
they thought
Guerrero.
we were going to get out of Bo Bichette, and look what
Correct.
happened there.
Yeah, he struggled
You
like
know.
mightily
Hmm.
with health last year. Both those
Yep.
guys are off the books after this year. So it was like a guy like Kevin Gossman, who's been,
Hmm.
front part of that rotation. And like, yeah, the window's closing really, really quick.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're like the Astros can't afford the move of Kyle Tucker, which like when Hot Stove Cubbies, he started mentioning this name to me like last year. And I was just like, Kyle Tucker's not getting traded. But I'm like, oh, I guess like they've got Jordan and like their farm system does need some replenishing, but yeah, like I feel like the time is now. The question is
Hmm.
going to be like what are the other things that the other irons they have in the fire? We had I had some inside sources, Hot Stove Cubbies had some inside sources of that trade that fell apart with the M's, the White Sox, and the Cubs, or at least like it was getting structured with like it was multiple players transacting, as many as 7 Cub players involved in the transaction, including names like Nico and Billy and a player like Javier Assad. And like the Cubs were gonna target getting both Castillo and Garrett Crochet. So like, what pieces is Houston looking for? Like, what are they looking for? Are they really looking for young kids? Are they looking for major league talent? Is it gonna stop the Cubs' ability from them to make a move to supplement a different part of the roster? Because it seems like free agency, at least based on the pricing for pitching, is not where the Cubs are going to improve this team. It's going to be through trades. So like
Yep.
I don't want like a better move not to happen because like we went all in on a Kyle Tucker, but like I don't think
Right.
you're gonna regret growing in on all in on a Kyle Tucker. But I'm
Hmm.
curious what
Hmm.
all in looks like because yeah, I guess the the blueprint would be last year's Juan Soto trade, which like
Yeah.
had some
Oh yeah.
prospects in it with yeah, Kyle Higgis, oh god. I can't Kyle H, the catcher
I was
from
gonna say I wasn't even gonna attempt to do that one.
and
You
then
went
I
further than
I
I
know I
would have.
know how to say it, but like I'm not gonna be able to say it on a live show. Uh,
Yeah.
like obviously Michael King, who well, at the time was a bullpen piece, but turned into a really just strong starting piece for
Yeah.
them last year. So
Yep.
yeah, I
Yep.
think if like they want like an Assad or like Wicks, and then I don't know, like could we see Assad, Alcantara, and Triantos, and maybe another mid-tier prospect in there? Does that get Kyle Tucker? I don't know. I don't know, but like,
Well, and what's funny too is that you're saying you brought up a good point just now. You're like, what is the definition of all in? And honestly, I think that there are several definitions of all in. There's all in for Soto. There's all in for Tucker. There's all in for look what the Yankees did for Max. There's all different levels, different tiers as far as going all in. And I think it's not even so much that it's and this is what and I know Jeff, you and I have talked about this a bunch too. What drives me nuts is the not so much the fact of that they don't go all in on folks. It's the fact of that we are nowhere being aggressive when it comes to going out and getting these guys. If I were to read, and obviously it's not going to happen, but if I were to go out and read and say, okay, yes, Soto signed for 15 years, 765 million. The Cubs offered him 10 at 600 and didn't get it. You know what though? But that would show me, yeah, we didn't get it. Okay, whatever. That's probably smart money that we didn't spend. But that Jed was smart enough and aggressive enough to actually go out there and try to make these moves happen. What
yep,
the hell have we heard from him this offseason? They're putting all their hats. I was reading today, all their eggs in one basket for Carson Kelly. Okay, yeah, it's going to help our catching thing, but it's Carson Kelly. Is
yeah,
that bat really going to make a difference? No.
it's
I
not the
mean, they
bat
got to
though.
get more aggressive.
I don't mind the Kelly deal because the catching market's been like absolute
Oh,
garbage. Um,
100%,
but like
100%. But he
Carson
just got to
Kelly's
get.
pop time, arm strength, like caught stealing rate career wise, like they really needed a guy to supplement a Maya at minimum that can control. Like
Yeah.
I look at Milwaukee and I look at Cincinnati, and I see the athleticism,
Hmm.
and I'm like, we need a guy who can control the run game.
Mhm.
Some of that starts with like starters, like release point, timing, those types of things. But then having a catcher that can make up for those things a portion of the time is going to change the game.
Right.
And
Right.
Carson Kelly is a guy that has an extremely good defensive reputation. At one point, I always forget, like, he was a Cardinals top prospect, heir apparent to the Yadier Molina, and
Yeah.
like was a throw in one of the trades over to Arizona, the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was there
Mhm.
for a number of
Mhm.
years, and I didn't realize he was already 30. Like, I feel like this guy hasn't played anywhere near as long as I thought
Right.
he has,
Right.
but I really do like once it becomes official, which Brett Taylor had mentioned. It's likely more um, after the Rule 5 draft, once they
Mhm.
know like
Mhm.
roster space and stuff. But I like the signing. Yeah, it's not great for the offense, like you said. Like this is the Cubs need like,
Yep.
and that's Cody Delmendo came on to my Twitter space the other night, and like we kind of sounded like two cranky old men, like the old men from the Muppets in the theme. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yep.
yelling down at the puppets, making comments but not making solutions. But
Yep. Yep.
um, but we had said too that like we've been talking for the last like 2 3 off seasons about the same three things. Like they don't have like strikeout stuff in the rotation or the pen, and they don't have a big bat that galvanizes group on the offense. And it's just like,
Mhm.
all right, but like if we're not gonna pay Soto, like if that's not like what we're interested in doing, we have the money, but we're not gonna pay the money. Like
Yeah.
that's great, but yeah, and I don't think I give $27.5 million for 8 years to a 31-year-old pitcher. Like that's not I don't see Max Fried aging well. Like that's not something I want the Cubs to do, but like sometimes you gotta be dumb. Like because like
Yeah.
when you can't and like I've been dumb most of my life and have been pretty successful. Like so I think that like just be stupid for just a little bit. Like
Right.
yeah, don't like let the Ivy computer tell you what someone is valued. Like go out and win the deal. And I always thought of it like I underwrote medical malpractice insurance. Immediately the entire audience has fallen asleep. But I used to underwrite medical malpractice
Wake
insurance.
up. All right.
Yeah, and like we used to, depending on legal markets and stuff, we would write certain business and we wouldn't write others. But the
Yeah.
longer you didn't do something, when you came back to the table, it's like we'd like to do this. Like it was always like it was way harder to start that conversation because it's like, well, why'd you ever stop?
Yeah.
And I feel like the Cubs are in that spot, and like I hate that I have an insurance metaphor for the situation because
No,
like
it's true. I mean, the way I can even do you one even better. It's like, and I see guys, at work, guys, friends of mine, whatever. They're constantly going to the gas station and they're buying scratch off lottery tickets, and they're stupid for dropping 5, 10 bucks a day, a week, whatever it is. And you're saying you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Why do you keep dropping that money? But then one day they buy a $5 ticket, scratch off, and they win 300 bucks. So it's like you were stupid all that time, but that one time that you were still kind of being dumb, it paid off. And that's what the Cubs need to do. That's why, and going back to this Carson Kelly thing, yeah, it's great. And I would love to get a good backup catcher. But for the love of God, if you take the survey of the landscape of Major League Baseball, most teams have one, maybe two hitters in the lineup where the opposing team is like, oh crap, so and so is coming up, or oh crap, so and so is on deck. We're gonna have to pitch around him. Who the hell does the Cubs have on their lineup right now that can do that?
no, and if you get rid of
Nobody.
Suzuki and Bellinger in the trade, like you've even diminished that minimum prospect even more, and that's
Exactly.
that's my
Yep.
my my biggest concern with that is like if you're talking those players, you're talking something pretty big, but if you can't make up, if you cannot improve, like just mathematically, the production at
Mm.
both those spots in those
Yep.
deals, then you can't do them. Like you
Then
just,
don't do them.
yeah,
Exactly.
I
Yep.
don't think the Cubs are at that point, but like I think as a fan base, like we are terrified by that signaling because like the immediate thought process is you Darvish, and you're like, oh, we dropped him off for teenagers, and yes, I got a lot of the rebuttal on Twitter after like kind of mentioning this point. of like, well, like we got Owen Casey, but like, yeah, Owen Casey is still a prospect though, and that was
Mhm.
4 years
And
ago
panned out
now.
yet.
So like Yu
Hmm.
Darvish has been an extremely successful part of a Padres playoff team for several years, and we exchanged that money for four teenagers, and one of them is at AAA. So
Hmm.
that to me is like a failure. It's a failure,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
it's a failure that
It.
Cubs, with all their resources, should be embarrassed about. Like that's
Yep. Hmm.
there's no redecorating that. There's no like that's
No, there's not. And it's like Jed, or excuse me, it's like what Theo used to say, that they wanted to build a franchise to have sustained success. And I understand that you want to make sure that you've got a great minor league system. But guess what? A great minor league system is not going to win you World Series. Okay. And again, like you said, it's a crapshoot as far as the minors. It's a crapshoot with these prospects. You don't know who and who's not going to pan out. I get all that. But if you have the slightest inkling within the organization, or as hockey people say, organization, that is this person's not going to pan out, ship them. I don't know.
yeah.
It's like you talked about before with the fantasy league baseball mentality. Well, he might do good in 2 years, or he's projected to be in the starting lineup in 3 years. Who cares? Okay, it's like, how long do we have to wait for these guys to pan? If they're not going to pan, send them to somebody else. And if they pan out, then guess what? That's Major League Baseball. That's the chance you take.
So that's
But
a
that's what we need to do.
I do want to address Neil, I see your question in the chat and we'll get to it, but I do have I don't know, one final is not the correct way I want to put it, but I do have another point about this
Mm-hmm.
offseason in general. Like I went into this offseason and beyond the hot seat that Jed Hoyer is theoretically in, and like we can have a whole different discussion about who is
Yeah, we
at
could.
fault for how the team is operated. Is it
Mm-hmm.
Tom? Is it Jed? Is Jed operating in a universe in which like he has no control or knowledge of what the year to year budget is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why there's
Or is
so
it
many.
D, all of the above?
Correct. Yes, I think it's potentially an unhealthy marriage,
Yep.
and like we've gone past the like the lawyer is going to be able to make an amicable solution here. Like there's just too much like emotional damage on both sides, and like she's getting your Lou Gehrig signed baseball card and he's walking out the door with tears stains on like your old letters from when you guys were dating in high school. Well, that was a really lousy metaphor, but um you know
That
at
was pretty good.
at, at the end of the at the end of the day, like I walked into this offseason knowing that there was going to be like absolutely necessary, like world altering, roster altering moves if they were not going to dance in free agency. And
Hmm.
like Theo Epstein, this is the one thing I think that the current version of Cub fans post 2016 probably struggle with the most, including myself. We in 2012 when they hired Theo Epstein retrained every one of our brains into prospect loving people because that
Yeah.
was what we were sold. He got all these chips, all these different lotto tickets, and then like
Hmm.
as they got better, like the conversation shifted. He was like teaching us about how to build an organization. Like each one of us got to go
Hmm.
on the Theo train and pray to the Church of Theo, which like I was their number one disciple. Like
Yep.
I would have drank whatever the hell was in that Kool-Aid container. If he was selling it, I was buying it. And he's
Hmm.
like, well, once you get to a certain place in an organization, like there are two types of assets you can use. You can use player assets to like extend like different like salary windows and stuff and controllable windows for players, or it can use pure money, which is always the more preferable way of getting players because then you can
True.
hold on to these assets because you're the one who knows the most about them and like then it turned into this thing where he held on to his cards. So there's all these metaphors about like these players being chips and cards. And at the end of the day, like the budget switched dramatically at some point. Um,
Hmm.
Not entirely sure why. I think there's a lot of financial component to that. There's a lot of like I don't know, impatience, maybe frustration,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
expectation, change in value of the TV deal, change in cost of the ballpark restoration. Yes, like ultimately the product on the field should be funding all these things, but I think they were trying to do both, and then one like skyrocketed in expenses, and the other one plateaued. Like development
Yep.
wise, like that entire group plateaued, and I don't think
His
he'll be.
assets, the way that and this is an old saying that my grandfather said, his assets turned into ass hats.
Yeah, there you go. And
Bingo.
like,
That's exactly what it was.
yeah, people want to like dump on Jed, but like he's built like he's had the job since 2021. It's 2024. We're going into 2025 season. He turned this from a crap farm system to a pretty deep farm system with 7 top 100 prospects, and he did not resign one of those players from the core who have like 90% of them have been god awful. Like he is
Oh
not
God, yeah.
like if you're thinking
With
the team,
Rizzo on the move again, probably
yeah,
this week.
if you think this roster has been hamstrung by like Dansby Swanson and stuff, you're incorrect. We would have been way more hamstrung if we did what we all wanted them to do and sign that core. We'd be sitting here looking at people my age who are on a significant down tour or like not healthy enough to even play the game, and we'd be
Mm-hmm.
watching that. And yes, we'd have the nostalgia, but there would be no way out of it because we would be just like strung to all these long-term contracts that we wanted these guys to get, these pillow contracts for the World
Yep.
Series team. But yeah,
Yep.
like long belabored winded point later, like the Cubs I really thought would hang on to those chips as long as they possibly could and really go after a guy like Juan Soto that was
Mm-hmm.
needed for this roster. I don't think Steve Cohen was going to be beat, and it feels very
Oh God, no. He's got
yeah,
deep pockets.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it feels very similar to the situation last year. Like maybe that's why the Cubs are like Steve Cohen was not going to be beat. Maybe Steve Cohen was like at the little billionaires boy club where all the other owners hang out. Was like he's like I'm not letting any one of you beat me. And like they
Yeah.
evaluated and they're like there's no reason to waste our time and our efforts like cuz he would have to take less money to come here. Like cuz that was
Mm-hmm.
what was going to happen. So like I'm not saying it's okay like that they didn't talk to him, but I can see the rationale. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like when you've continuously sat out of this conversation, that rationale falls apart very quickly. And I
Yep.
do think they were going to pitch Shohei Otani. I don't think Otani ever had any interest in leaving the West Coast. Like
No, gosh, no, no. Yeah, he was going to
like
stay regardless.
yeah, now we're in the prove it situation. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I hate that we have to use our prospects to get there, and
Yeah.
that's a weird way to end that. Is I'd like to have my cake and eat it too, and I
Mm-hmm.
really would
There's
like
nothing
them.
wrong with that. Yep.
But
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, this free agent market, like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna Rafael Devers this all over again? We're gonna sit and say, well, that guy, he's oh, I'm looking at my calendar. His contract expires in 1 year, and then Astros sign Kyle Tucker to some extension mid-year, or Guerrero gets an extension mid-year, and then these guys aren't free agents again, and we're sitting here with our ass like in our hands again, waiting for a
Yep.
superstar player that we haven't developed to come into a free agent market. Like
Yep.
we've sang that song. We've heard it on the radio. Like it's been covered by Chapel Roan. Like we're all like we were all in this. Like and
Yeah.
it's no longer hot to go. Like it's like a freezing cold take, and we're ready for change. We're
Mm-hmm.
like Barack Obama 2008. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I think at the end of the day, like I was ready for painful transitions from this roster, but like I am getting antsy of like we've heard all these things now at this point in the off season. What do they mean and where is it going to lead?
Yeah.
And that
I'm tired of listening to the sound of crickets.
yeah,
Do something. Do
it's
anything. Because I guarantee you, because guess what's coming up right around the corner in about a month? Cubs convention. And
correct.
if Jed sits on his hands and does nothing, or if this organization does nothing, and you come around to Cubs convention, I wouldn't want to be Jed. I wouldn't want to be any member of the Ricketts family walking into that. We saw it. I was with my son 2 years ago when we went at a convention, and Ricketts walked up on stage in the main ballroom, and boy, did the fans just let him have it. And that's what they've got to do. It doesn't matter, like I said, it doesn't matter if it pans out or not, but at least try. And right now, they're not really doing much of anything. Look at this city. The Hawks are, I mean, I think the Chicago Steel out here could probably beat the Hawks right now. The Bulls, you never know what's going on with that. Bears, don't get me started. I mean, there is literally nothing going on in this city right now. What a better time to make a big splash. And I'm not saying that's the reason why they should do it, but what a better time to make a big splash than right now. What a better time to, I mean, and the other thing is that you got the Ricketts family and they're all about business, business, business. Okay. You make a big deal right now, right before Cubs convention. I will guarantee you right now, you're going to start to see those ticket prices start, or not prices, but the ticket sales start going and going and going and going and going. I get an email from the Cubs about every 3 or 4 days asking if I still want to buy season tickets. First of all, I've never bought season tickets before. Secondly, that shows that they're desperate. That shows that they are down. I remember being on a waiting list for the Cubs season tickets thing for waiting for like 7 years or whatever the heck it was. And now I'm getting an email every 3 or 4 days.
I was
I
on
mean, they,
I was on 15 years. I put my name on when
yeah,
I was 8. And I got called when I was
yeah,
23, and like that was soon. That was like based on what the estimates were. Like being called at 15
right.
years was like this like holy crap, like you really burned through the list. Like and now it's like
Yeah,
they don't even have a list. The list is gone. Like
I know.
that's how much the
Nope.
demand has dropped. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, I mean I had a TikTok that is my best performing TikTok of my season ticket holder gift. Like it was supposed to be reclaimed wood from the old roof of Wrigley. Clearly, like
Oh, is that the W
yeah,
light thing?
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not. And the season ticket holder on mine and a bunch of other people's, not everyone's, like is there's no R. It's season ticket holdy. Like that's and it sucks. Like and I wrote a long thing to the Cubs, and I think a lot of folks who have listened to content probably think that I'm a Cubs homer, which like I would say a good chunk of that it would take so little to please me as a Cubs fan, so little,
Right.
because I like look at
Mm-hmm.
this basement. I adore this team. When they've
Yeah.
sucked most of my life, I have given you oodles and oodles of my lawn mowing allowance money and now adult money, like into
Yeah.
like memorializing the things that I love about this sport and I love about this team. But like why does it feel like when I'm a season ticket holder that like I am straight like garbage that like gives you money? Like
Yeah.
that sucks. That's a shitty feeling
They're
for part of my
treating
fan base.
you. They're treating you the same way they would treat a guy that scalped them off of Addison and Sheffield.
Correct. And like
Scalp tickets, and
there were
that's a
no
joke.
this year, like the big
Yeah.
thing they changed is like you can claim 2 of the gate giveaways at the beginning of the year. We'll set them aside. I'm like, what? Like I feel like if I'm giving you the money,
Yay.
like I should get all of those, like the Bulls do.
Yeah.
Like, but like, yeah, I mean, like let's not start comparing them to the other. But like, I kind of want to go back to the point you're making. They have an opportunity to be the only team in this city that is worth a shit. Like that's like
Yeah.
that is so frustrating that like they
Yep.
might blow that because this is like they could be just like 2016. They could be the talk of the town. They could be the
Mm-hmm.
baseball team like Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm not even sure he's interested in staying in Chicago, like for at least the White Sox, like all the smoke with
He wants to do
Nashville.
the '78 project and leave. That's
Yeah,
all he's
correct.
up for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the Bulls are a mess. The Blackhawks are a mess. The Bears are a mess. And no end in sight. But the Cubs
Mm.
are the best run organization in Chicago. But as I've said several times in the last few days, that's like being the brightest crayon in a dull, unsharpened Crayola box. Like it's just not the
Yeah.
competition is not stiff. Like you should not be.
Nope.
That's not something to sit here and be proud of.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we'll do some questions. We're going to take a short break. We have a special guest, Terry Carey, coming on. Um, I do want to
Yeah,
talk.
he just called me. I think he's lost. Van Auken's taking him down some alleyway right now, but I think he's going to be here momentarily.
All right, we'll take a short break here, and we'll come back, and we're just going to focus on questions in the chat. So if you got questions, if you're on Twitter, drop them in Twitter, as they say on election day. If you're in line, stay in line.
Stay in line.
Ask us the questions. We're gonna be answering your questions, reacting to any hopefully live news updates. I just saw an update where Spencer Horowitz's tenure with the with the Cleveland Guardians is already over. He's been flipped to Pittsburgh in exchange for 3 pitchers. So he was on his way to.
Also, that yeah, because that was the Toronto deal originally, so
Yep,
he got flipped
that
again.
was. He
Yikes.
was a Pittsburgh Pirate for well a little bit longer than some of the Kardashians' marriages. So Thank you. We're here all night. Try the veal.
Enjoy the veal.
Yeah, but yeah, we will take a quick break. I need some water. We'll be right back with more live Bricks Behind the Ivy and a special visit from Mr. Harry Carey. All right, guys, we are back. I have decided that I am getting frisky and need a root beer to get me to sleep. I do want to do a really quick shout out as I'm going to post the audio for this, hopefully this evening, tomorrow at the latest, to Yagi Road Roasting Company. Why not have the coffee in your cup as special as the moments in your life? Check out their website. There's links in the description of our podcast. There's links in the description on our YouTube page. It's been great working with them. Two guys from Valparaiso University, go Beacons, my alma mater, make an absolutely incredible cup of coffee. Here, I'm shameless plug. This is my bag of Yagi Road. My God, this smells.
Nice.
This is their decaf. I have very public about my mental health journey. I just found out this year that I have ADHD. So I have different medications I have to take to help me just keep ticking. So I can't have caffeine anymore. But I can have this decaf coffee, which is freaking incredible. It is the best cup of coffee I've ever had. Pat, I got to get you some of this stuff. I'm not even kidding.
I'm gonna have to
It
hop
is,
on there and order some of this. The way you
yeah.
talk about it, I can go for a cup.
So I met Mrs. Candid Cubs at Valpo, Go Beacons, and she was a barista at the coffee shop on campus for any Valpo grads, grinders, and she has just a really really good palate when it comes to coffee, and this is not even close, hands down her favorite coffee, over Dark Matter,
You know,
over some of the other pristine coffee shops and coffee blends in Chicago, this stuff not close. So that's such a ringing endorsement. I cannot sell that enough. Endorsed by Mrs. Candid Cubs herself. Go get yourself some Yagi Road. And also, thank you to our first sponsor ever, Wrigleyville Sports, greatest sports store
yes.
in Wrigleyville. They just had a feature with Samsung Small Business, talking about their story and what it means to them to be in Wrigleyville. They've been around since 1991, hoping to make it another 34, 35 years. They've just brought so much to that community. They've done so much
Yeah.
fan apparel moving out of that store, and just a store that I find synonymous with my Wrigleyville trip. So make sure you support them. Continue to use the code Ivy10. It's almost Christmas. Ivy10. I know they've been running some clearances and stuff, but on full price items, Ivy10 at checkout, 10% off. So thank you as always to the great folks over at Wrigleyville Sports who answered an email from a guy with a dream and have just been nothing but supportive since. It's means the world to me. Um, yeah. Enough from our
Thank you for all you
sponsors.
do. Yep.
Uh, Hopefully more coming in the future as we continue to grow partnerships for the official Cub podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans here at BBTI. We love every one of our brickheads, as we love to call you. So, um, other news before we continue to the second half of the show. The Instagram comments are working again. So if you have a question and you're watching on Instagram, feel free to drop a question there. YouTube, we're getting questions from there as well. And also, we are getting questions from Twitter. So if you have questions you want to ask, including to once Harry Carey arrives, if you have any questions for Harry, we are happy to answer your questions on the second part
Hopefully
of the
he's going
show.
to be coherent enough to do so, but fingers crossed.
Well, he in the living was never to do so, so why in the afterlife
Nope.
would he would he be a significant better version of himself? Um,
Absolutely.
we're gonna take a quick second of the up to the minute baseball news. As we said earlier, Guardians are getting Hartle, Luis Ortiz, and Michael Kennedy from the Pirates in the Horowitz deal. Just looking at the top prospect list for the Pirates to see where these guys rank in 2024. Yeah, not anything of note. I see Yeah, this is live from our Michael Kennedy is their 15th ranked prospect, about three-star prospect at high A, 20 years old. Josh Hurdle, he's at low A, 21 years old, left-handed pitcher. Luis Ortiz, we have seen in that rotation, pretty interesting arm. I always would be super hesitant, just like getting arms from
Hmm.
the from the Rays, giving arms to the Guardians. They just have like just a development machine. So there must be something about these guys. Clearly, the Andres Jimenez deal had more to do with moving money. Shout out to old orchestra friend from Valparaiso University, Dave Elbrick, huge Guardians fan. Um, really nice thing. He sent me his ticket from Game 7 of the World Series after the Cubs won, for me to
Oh,
have.
heck yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, just like super good dude. He was a great bass player, upright bass. I believe he still plays. But shout out to Dave for a super thoughtful gift, and sorry for how your team operates, having to dump money. Like I can't imagine. Like as a large market club who seems to be replicating that, I feel for you. All right, so the other thing that I'm seeing from Ken Rosenthal at the moment is Nolan Arenado has released a list of teams that he would waive his no trade clause to, and it's including the Dodgers, the Padres, the Phillies, the Mets, the Red Sox, and the Angels.
Which,
Interesting.
well, the Angels surprised me, but all the other ones, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Yankees aren't on that list.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Like I thought maybe shore up their defense. Yeah, like I mean he regressed a little bit defensively. Obviously, did not win a Gold Glove, did not win the Platinum Glove over at third last year. But a tandem, Anthony Volpe is a hell of a defender at shortstop. If the bat comes along, he's gonna be a star there in New York. Folks just need to be patient. Super young. Yeah, he wasn't Derek Jeter immediately, but like there's a reason the guy was almost a unanimous Hall of Famer because he's Derek Jeter. But like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
just be patient there. I think that's a great player, but to have him and then Jazz Chisholm being able to move over to second base and maybe finding like Christian Walker in the free agent market, like that Yankees lineup and defense in the middle infield, with the pitching they already have now with Max Fried, like would look pretty good. But yeah, he's not
Yeah.
interested in playing there, so it's a moot point. All right, is Harry here? Is he
Hold
close?
on a sec. Here, you know what? He's trying to call me. I'll be right back. Let me see if he's here.
All right. I hope he's not driving. I hope he got an Uber. Uh,
Yeah, come on. What? Yeah, come on down here. Hold on. Just wait a minute. Hold on a second here. I gotta. One. Hey!
hey,
Hello again, everybody. Hold on a minute. Is this thing on?
it
What?
is.
Okay. Hey, how are you, Jeff? Good to see you, buddy. How are you? Let me.
I'm doing all right, but I do want to
Ooh.
clarify with you, Harry, that it
Yeah.
is actually called YouTube, which doesn't mean it's called HarryTube. It's just
Well,
YouTube because you can be
I
on it.
thought it was. If you're saying YouTube, is it me too? What?
No,
Ah, you kids and your shenanigans and all the technology. And I'm lucky I know how to plug in a box fan, for gosh sake. I don't understand, but hey, how about those winter meetings so far? I tell you what, the Cubs doing jack squat, by the way. But I think we might do something at some point, because I'm telling you what, it's driving me crazy there, Jetty boy. Let's do something. Oh, what do you got for me, Jeff?
all right, so we do have one question from Brickhead Extraordinaire and part of our team, Mr. Neil, the Cubs ticket. He is asking directly if the Cubs signed that Juan Soto deal, the 15 mil or 15 years, 765 million, would we be comfortable with that contract for the Cubs?
Boy, oh boy. Well, Neil, good to hear you, buddy. You know your name backwards is Leanne. Hold on. Okay, anyway, you know, Soto with the 15 years, 765 million. I mean, how's that guy going to survive in life? I mean, that's chump change. Anyway, I'm really glad that the Cubbies didn't do that deal. It takes me back to what's his name, Alex Rodriguez and Albert Pujols when they had those big 10-year deals, and what happened towards the end of that? I mean, they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. But I'm glad that they didn't do it. We don't need to lock in all of our money into one guy. I mean, they tried to do that with me and Vec over on the south side, and they tried to and I said, "Hey, I'm not going to do that," but you can't dump all your money on one ball player. You need to now brace yourself. Dutchie taught me this word the other day. You got to diversify. Ooh, don't ask me how to spell it. I have no idea. But I'm really glad that we didn't do that, and I think that the boys are going to be in the right direction. Hey, is Carmelo Martinez or Mel Hall still available? I don't. Good Lord, we got to do something.
No, I tend to agree with you, Harry. I think the deal, Jeff Passan of ESPN, that said that it's a bad baseball deal. If you're looking at
Yeah.
the value of it, and I think everybody wants to have a Juan Soto on their team. You wait your whole life to scout a player like half as good as Juan Soto is, and he's a generational talent for a reason. 26 years old. But when he's done with that contract, he is going to be 41. You're thinking about
Yeah.
what the back
Well, the
nine.
back half
So
is not going to be good, buddy. I'm
no,
telling you that right now. And dumping all this money into it, I kind of equate it to where you have a little, maybe like a college fridge, right? But you bought yourself 25 cases of Budweiser, but you can only fit in about 2 cases of it. So the other 23 of them are going to get warm and icky. That's the same thing that's going to happen here. The front end is going to be cold and delicious, but the back end's going to go stale. This is what I'm seeing from old Soto is going to happen over there. It's what the Bronx Bombers do all the time, and who knows? I don't know. In belly we trust. Is that what I'm supposed to be saying now? I I was hoping he was either that or Konichiwa. I don't know if Say is going to be their answer this year, but did not. I'm hoping to goodness gracious, as sure as God made green apple, that we're going to be halfway decent because the Cubbies will thrive in 25. Boy, oh boy, my mind's racing. I got to slow it down.
so I think
Oh boy.
just one more thought on a coherent thought on the Soto contract. I think I was personally very surprised that Harry the contract AAV exceeded Shohei Ohtani. If we're talking unicorns I thought were going to be used as a benchmark after proven they exist. And Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani is a very, very special talent, but really the AAV here had to be supercharged based on his agent and Steve Cohen. So I'm not upset at the
No.
Cubs dodging the value. I am upset by them dodging the conversation.
Yep, you
Um,
got. I mean, if you want to get better, you got to dance with the better. You got to at least make an opportunity. And I remember when the Cubbies made a huge splash back in the early '90s, and thoughts and prayers goes out to Rhino. God bless him. I love him. I used to watch him all the time and the play-by-play. But I remember when he was on the cover of SI in the early '90s when he had that big deal. It was the big contract deal, and that was only about what 2.5 million. Look at what these contracts are going towards today. I mean, it's unbelievable. Soto, Fried, all these guys are getting paid this money. And if you really look at it from a team standpoint, the front end's always great, but they always tail off. And then what you're looking at doing is then they're trying to ship out their garbage onto some other team that is going to take a cup of coffee on them to see if they'll work. Yagi Road, but they're going to try to fix and see what's going on with it. But I don't know. I'm glad that the Cubbies didn't spend that kind of money. I would just love to see though that they get aggressive somewhere, something. When I was listening to you guys with Vanaken on the way over here, and then I heard your comments on the Kyle Tucker thing. I would be pretty excited if they went ahead and got somebody like that. It's not going to break the bank. It's not going to be cheap either. But you know what? Why not? Why not go after somebody, anybody, to show these fans, the greatest fans in baseball, that you care and you at least give a crap and you're going to try to make this team better.
No, and I agree. I think, we deserve to be treated like we give a crap, because we do. So, next question. This is a follow up. We had someone hop in and ask about a trade structure. Thanks for coming back, Stephen Dunn. Hope you're subscribed on YouTube. Hope you listen to our audio podcast. Happy to answer your question. He's talking about the proposed trade of players that were out there with the M's, the Cubs, and the White Sox, where the Cubs would land Garrett Crochet and Luis Castillo, and the M's would get Nico Horner, Bellinger, and potentially another piece, and the White Sox were getting a few prospects from both teams. He seems a little concerned about the Castillo and Crochet trade being a significant overpay, given Crochet has about a season worth of high end success based on some health. Then he's not has this huge reputation of a starter, and Luis Castillo, he does not see the value of him at this point of his. He's 31 years old, and there was a little bit of a decline in his average fastball velocity in 2024 versus his career norm. So what are your thoughts there? Do you think that is an overpay, or those two guys that you would prefer to see as Chicago Cubs?
Well, I looked at the body of work of those two guys, and obviously I was able to see Garrett. What are they? Crochet.
Crotchy.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. But I saw his body of work this year, and he was a hell of an arm for a toilet bowl of a franchise on the South Side. I would like to see them get it. The only player that, excuse me. Hey, Steve, put out the cigar. Anyway, the only player that I did not like to see in that kind of deal is Nico. I mean, to see what that guy does on a day to day basis. I mean, sure, he's not a power bat, but he's a good contact hitter. But the way he plays in the field, it reminds me of a very younger Ryan D. Sandberg out of Washington State. To see him go, I think it would not behoove this organization to let Nico go, but if you can get somebody to take on Belly, and it would not give you the, because I heard you boys earlier talking the insurance for old Bush and PCA and all that kind of stuff, but you got to look at the back end of what you'd be getting. You'd be getting a couple of really good names. I'd be curious to find out, and I don't know. Maybe Jeff, with your sources and all your things, who that third guy might have been. Are we talking to a high minor league guy? Or are we talking to, is it the hot dog vendor in Section 208? Who are we looking at? Would have been that third guy?
There were rumored names of it being Javier Assad,
Hmm.
along with Casey and Toronto's being the headline going to the White Sox, on top of Emerson Hancock and another name from the Mariners as the prospect package going to the south side. Um,
Yeah.
there were a lot of names mentioned. It was 7 in total for the Cubs, a full team transaction, so -7 +2. So there would have been work for the Cubs to do, to kind of fill those holes. But yeah, I mean, I think the Cubs rotation is very lefty heavy. I really like the idea of having different arm slots, different angles, different sides. I think the key to a 31-year-old version of Luis Castillo is going to be a return form of his sinker. When he was performing slightly better, he didn't have a bad season last year. He still put up a 3.64 ERA. He was 2.99 as recently as 2002, 3.34 in 2003, 3.64 last year. By pitch run value, his best pitch is fastball. So to see a half mile per hour drop in the average velocity at 31 and that being your most valuable pitch, it's a little bit of a concern. But second most valuable pitch is the
Right.
slider. But the sinker is the difference between what he did prior in his career versus what he does now, and he really needs to find a little bit more of that horizontal movement on that pitch than he did in the past. One of my favorite things, there's a pitch movement profile on Baseball Savant. You guys should check this out. Especially for all those Cubs nerds out there. When you hear that Justin Steele's fastball is different, this is a visual of what that means. And they have the average, like in a giant ball, they have the average major league movement profile of every pitch. And then they have the data points of what your pitcher's pitch is. And it is clear separation for our guy, Justin Steele, between what an average fastball looks like in the majors and what Justin Steele's fastball looks like. So that's when people say he has a unique fastball, yeah, it does not move the same way as other fastballs in baseball. So that is what they mean by that. And, there's a little bit of that type of shape and movement for Castillo on his pitchers, especially the sinker. So it feels like a profile the Cubs generally like to have, that unusual movement, especially in the higher velocity. And, I wouldn't be against it. It's a higher contract that they could take back. He's still only 31. His contract is lower than what the free agent market is, and he has a significantly higher velocity than guys currently on this rotation. So, yeah, Crochet, very, very young, controllable, ace upside. Yes, he
Mhm.
only did it for a year, but those types of guys don't hit the market. So like, it's one of those things where you got the chips, you're either all in or you're not, and that's a real gamble move. If the gamble move is Tucker over Crochet, I take Tucker. There's a
Mhm.
longer,
I agree with
um,
you. Oh yeah.
he's a,
Yeah.
there's a longer track record of success. A solid defensive right fielder, 30 stolen bases, 30 home runs, 27. I take Tucker over Crochet. If I had both, I'd like both because I'm greedy.
Oh yeah, that would
Yeah.
be nice. I tell you what, that would be fantastic. And the other thing, if you look at the body of work of major league pitchers in this day, I mean, yeah, you always want that guy like a Nolan Ryan or somebody that just comes in and mows them down. But if you really look at the overall landscape of major league pitching, yeah, they are. The heat's not there anymore, but they're going to more of a Hendricks Maddox type thing where it's more of an art instead of the speed. So they're starting it once they slow down. And who knows if this is what's going to happen with Castillo, if he's going to start finding out how to paint the corners and getting all fancy dancy. But he might be able to do something like that. But yeah, in the perfect world, I'd like to have them both. But for the love of good, I mean, we got to get the bat, and I mean, I think we were doing good by getting old Matty Boy signed and put in our rotation. I think that's pretty good right now. So if we don't get to do something to upend the rotation from last year, and but I think we got to get the big bopper to get in the lineup so that we can have